Welcome to From the VC's Bookshelf, a podcast from TBR, the College System of Tennessee, the state's largest higher education system. In this series, we examine how we might re-envision the work we do and how we work together as we move into a post-pandemic world. Please join our host, Dr. Heidi Lemming, Vice Chancellor for Student Success, as she leads a live discussion with industry experts and leaders throughout our system.
In our Spring 2025 podcast series, we're focusing on themes found in the book, Creating Campus Community in Search of Ernest Boyer's Legacy by William McDonald and Associates. The book was released in 2002, but the relevance of the topic is more important than ever for our students and institutions. Belonging asks, does everyone on campus feel valued, connected, and able to be their authentic self? In many ways, belonging is the emotional counterpart to inclusion. It's the feeling of having personal involvement in an environment. And a sense of belonging is centered on gaining acceptance, being part of something and feeling supported, as well as giving support to others. Like inclusion, a sense of belonging is active and it requires reflection. So thriving institutions really create spaces to foster that social connection and communication that in turn nurtures creativity, innovation, and success. So in today's podcast, I'm excited to have three panelists with us today. I'm going to introduce them. Kind of the focus of the podcast is an example of work being done at our campuses in the community and leveraging our Perkins dollars, our Perkins grant. The first person I want to introduce is Crystal Fink. Hello, Crystal.
Hi there. Nice to be here.
She's the Vice President of Finance, Facilities, and Instruction at the TCAT, which is the Tennessee College of Applied Technology in Elizabethton. Crystal works closely with the area Chamber of Commerce and workforce development, as well as business and industry, to build those relationships with community leaders and promote technical education to make sure that we have highly skilled workers in the areas of need. Before her work at the TCAT, she served for 17 years as a respiratory therapist in home care and pulmonary clinic. And in 2010, she leaped into education where she served the students and faculty of Washington County Schools for 12 years as the career and technical director, as well as the health science instructor for the Medical Technologies Program of Study. During this time, she served as the East Tennessee representative for the HOSA Career and Technical Student Organization and was awarded the 2023 Tennessee Department of CTE Tennessee State Pioneer winner. She's joined by a student. That student is Melissa Maxwell-Feltner. She's a third-term student in the PN program at TCAT Elizabethton. She's worked in healthcare for 20 years and has a certification as a nurse's aide. Over the last 9 years, she's been serving as a medication aid worker at a health and rehabilitation center. She became more interested in a nursing program after the pandemic and she experienced some health effects from COVID herself. And so that has led her to really get into this field. She enjoys helping people heal and progress in their rehabilitation. And she has been working with she finds working with long-term care residents very rewarding, including the relationships she builds with them and their families to provide that optimal care. She's going to graduate this April and apply that knowledge and skills that she's learned in the program to real life. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
And our
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And our third panelist is Kacie Hauldren. She's an ETSU nursing instructor. She is an alum who graduated from the nursing program almost 20 years ago. She has spent most of her career in medical surgical trauma, starting as a CNA and then as an RN. In 2011, she earned her Master in Nursing Education and began teaching at the local LPN program, where she then became director for 4 years. She later joined ETSU to assist with their LPN to BSN program and serves in a leadership role to assist in the development and growth of that program. She continues to work with ETSU in that bridge program and other areas, including clinical placement, and teaching and serving is her passion. Welcome, Kacie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, again, today we've had just a bio that we did with all of our panelists, because today we're going to be talking about some community partnerships, Perkins in the CTE area of study. A recap of the themes found in the book. It is based on a theory of engagement by Ernest Boyer. The book highlights 5 diverse institutions and how they have done this work to engage the community and give some examples. There are key components that kind of build this sense of belonging, which include just, being purposeful in our education, but also things like being just and open and caring and celebrative and disciplined, where group obligations kind of guide this behavior. So this podcast is really, again, trying to show examples of how this is playing out in our work on campuses. And the goal is for everyone to realize how much work we're doing to build this sense of belonging with students on campus, because if they don't belong, they're going to get disengaged, disconnected, and feel that discomfort. So let's first start with our panelists talking a little bit more about the specific Perkins funded work grant that you all received. And so I might turn it over to Crystal first, maybe to do a high-level overview of the Perkins grant that we're going to talk about.
Thank you. So we did receive 2 times. We're a 2-time recipient of the Perkins Ready Grant. Of course, we receive annual funding through the basic grant, but this opportunity came available to us. The first grant, we received $500,000 toward a advanced manufacturing sector. We work very close with the Johnson City Chamber and workforce development boards. And we identified that we had multiple companies, industries in our area that were needing specific training for the advanced manufacturing sector. So we received this grant. We were very excited. Again, $500,000 for this industry-relevant, innovative equipment that's housed at our Boones Creek location. So very excited about that. We've been working with, like I said, different business and industry. We actually have an event next week with the 35 industries in our area that focus on our workforce training for that. The second grant, the most recent one that we received, the Perkins Ready, was for the nursing program. So again, all of our grants that we write are based on, it's data-driven. So I had reached out to our nursing director and said, hey, what kind of needs do you have in the nursing program? And we did realize that our nursing program, we had some gaps in our anatomy and physiology section of our curriculum. Students were just really struggling with that portion. So the grant that I wrote for the $500,000 allowed us to be able to purchase what's called anatomage tables. These are a amazing, innovative piece of equipment. It's basically cadavers that they have digitalized and animated, so students are able to view in 3D different body parts, disease processes. There's even one that does childbirth, and they can manipulate that, as well as some pediatric simulators. Our advisory board had said that that was something that they felt a need, that we needed to improve on student availability for pediatric populations. So we purchased 3 newborn simulators, and these are, mimic what a newborn does. So we're very excited about those. Did you want Melissa to talk a little bit about the anatomage table?
Yeah, so it'd be great to get, the student perspective. That's where I was going to go next, is just, your experience in working with some of this equipment.
So the table is really exciting. I came in first term and we didn't have it. And anatomy is very, very hard. I struggled a little bit, but I got through it. But when you look at this table, I got to play with it in second term. It's amazing. You can look at a book and you can see body parts and you can identify them out of the book. But when you're actually looking at the human body, it's completely different. We got to play a game. We were identifying heart parts. And it's actually really hard because when you're looking at a book, it's completely different. And you can see the blood flowing and the muscle moving. It's really, really informative. It helps a lot more than just looking at pictures.
Great. And, one of the things that we wanted to kind of lean into is an example of kind of how this training is supporting community needs and how the equipment helps support, obviously, that training to meet those community needs. So I'll maybe see if, again, Crystal, you want to weigh in on that, or if Kacie, you want to kind of lean into that a little bit more.
I'll start, Kacie, if that's okay. Well, our industry partners, they want us to have qualified workers. And anytime you look into the healthcare sector, we need to be familiar with the human body. That allows our students to look at disease processes. Why are we doing what we're doing? And one of the things that we did notice, we had some business industry come back and said, your students may be very skilled. They know how to do these skill sets, but maybe they're lacking of why they're doing it. And I think the why is important in what we do. Why are we taking that blood sample? Why are we, manipulating or palpating this certain area? So I feel like this technology can enhance that. So our students not only can do the skill sets, but then the why behind we're doing the skill sets, which is very important. Kacie, you want to add?
Yeah, just from their perspective, us being partners with TCAT, it's definitely beneficial to help with their continuing of their education, because when you get into the baccalaureate degree program, pathophysiology is often the course that is very difficult for students. And so when you have something like this tool to help prepare them now, when they get to that course, when they come to a university, they're able to be successful. And so it really does help in their advancement. And then that also helps in turn the community, because RNs are needed as well in a lot of our facilities.
In Chapter 5, the author describes some campus examples of how leadership can build this sense of collaboration on campus. And you all are talking about, and kind of at a larger scale, how this collaboration even happens outside the campus with community partners. Can you speak to any one of you kind of the impact of having this opportunity on students, not only as they move out into the community, but also directly, again, with the community, and maybe share how you've seen this play out most recently with some of the tragic events in East Tennessee?
For me, like I said, I was in the classroom for 9 years. So collaborative learning to me is essential for our students to grow, not only professionally, academically, but also personally. We've seen, and I've looked at studies as an educator, how collaborative learning will increase, self-esteem and higher motivation and student achievement. So the collaborative learning piece, and I feel like with the anatomosh tables and some of the other things that we do at our college, it allows students to naturally navigate toward a team approach to solving a problem. So, for instance, let's say that the nursing instructors are doing a scenario, and it's just natural for some students to stand out. Maybe they have, their skill sets would be on anatomy, and one maybe is better at technology, and one maybe is better, they've learned the medication portion. So, to be interdependent on one another, I think really prepares them for real world. And another thing that I've seen, and Melissa and I actually talked a little bit about this before the podcast, is I think and hopefully we'll get back. I always did this in the classroom, but that collaboration also allowing the students to fail. I think failure can be a great learning tool for some of our students, and it's impactful because we as educators in the real world, nothing's going to go right all the time. But can they learn from that? Can they process that? Can they come out of that situation and be better critical thinkers? Can they, apply that to their learning? So one of the things I said, I didn't know if I was going to tell this on myself or not, but I will. So as an educator, there were many times that I would intentionally sabotage a clinical project. I would unplug a piece of equipment, or I would take a piece of the equipment out just to let my students struggle a little bit. And some, could pick up on it really quick. And I'm like, oh, my techie students are like, oh, this is what's happening. So again, we know the real world tells us that something's going to go wrong, especially in healthcare. You don't have everything at your fingertips. How can we be intentional in learning? So I'm going to let Melissa talk a little, because she said her teachers actually do that to her too. So
Yes. So when we do our sim lab and things like that, they will let us fail. They'll let us set up IVs wrong. The last sim lab that I had, we were doing CPR on someone forever, and we had forgotten to call a code. And that's something I'll never, ever forget. It was in sim lab, we messed up, and I'll never forget that. So when I'm in the real world, I'm going to go out and something's going to happen, and I'm going to remember I messed this up in sim lab. So now I'm going to call a code. It's just little things like that, and setting up IVs wrong. Now your patient's bleeding everywhere. I'm not going to forget that again. It's the failure that stays in your mind so that you can succeed later.
That's great. Kacie?
Yeah, I think you're talking about how the importance of collaborative learning. A great thing that it does, it also builds a sense of community. And so when they develop that sense of community within their small groups, that then becomes a larger sense of community, that urge to be a part of something and take care of something. And so that will translate when they go out and work, right? They take a sense of pride in that work in their community. And so when we see these disasters and things that happen, they want to step up and help, right? Because they care so much about that community.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about, I understand that the college has a relationship with some area high schools, and they assisted in quickly mobilizing support in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. So I would like for you all to talk a little bit more about kind of what happened, just as a story, an example of how this played out in your community.
So for us, when the hurricane hit, I've lived in this region my whole life. I had never experienced anything to this magnitude. And the first thing that we tried to do as a college and as a community was just identify the immediate needs. For us, we had 23 students that were affected. 8 of those students had total loss. We had 1 employee with total loss. So first and foremost, are our students okay? What kind of basic needs do they need? How do we get our employee, a place to live? So we were very fortunate in our region. We had so many faith-based community that came to our aid. We had no questions asked. We were getting students clothes, household supplies, hygiene items. Myself and one of our other employees, we just took the school van and we would go around and just collect boxes and put them in our auditorium and, tell our students, take what you need. So that was kind of the first phase. To me, there were the 2 phases. We had the immediate need crisis, reaching out to our students. And it was scary, I'll be honest, because we had internet that was out across a lot of our regions. So there was days that we didn't even know if students or how students were affected. So it was very emotional for us, and still honestly emotional talking about it. So that was the first phase, just really identifying how we could help. The second phase, and I think we're still going through that, is just the lasting impact of our area. And it was important for me to realize that even our students that did not maybe have a total loss, they were still affected by, there were roads out. There were businesses that were now gone, workplaces that were now gone. So for us, it's a continuous work on meeting students' needs, and it changes every day. I mean, there's no really one size fits all. It's this student needs baby formula. This student, needs transportation. So that's really, like I said, taking care of our own first, we built those relationships. With our dual enrollment community, we did have a lot of conversation. Each similar K through 12, they were kind of working on their own too. As far as collaboration with those, I just found that, hey, we have, 15 pallets of water. Can we share? But the region really took care of their own. And like I said, with a lot of the faith-based communities and things like that, we were able to get exactly what we needed for the time being.
That's great. Anybody want to add kind of from your perspective, the response in the community?
The response I got from the school was amazing. Our instructors reached out to make sure each of us were okay and to see if we had individual needs. I don't know if you're looking for more of just the community or just what the school has done.
Just how you felt. You're a member of the larger community, so just, yeah.
I mean, it was really, really rough. It was so sad. The churches really, really stepped up. I know I'm a member of a church and we did food drives and stuff like that. And everybody just really reached out and came together as a whole. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
We had one superintendent, I never will forget this, and I really wish I'd have kept a journal now looking back, but we had one superintendent in a very heavily hit area in Unicoi, and he said, this is the most devastating and also the most inspiring thing I've ever witnessed in my life. And that resounded to me because I felt that. I'd never seen anything. Even driving in those communities 4 months later, I still get, like I said, emotional. But just the outpouring of our community, and not just our community, but our surrounding communities. I mean, we had people driving here from out of state. Our Tennessee Board of Regents, they were checking on us daily. How are you doing? What needs do you have? How can we support you? And there were some days it was really hard to articulate what we needed. But I always loved living in this area. Tennessee's a great state. And now I even know for sure that this is probably the best state in the United States, if I can say that. But our area is just amazing. And the response we had from our community members.
Yeah. Kacie?
Well, mirror Melissa's sentiment about seeing how the community came together. I remember I went out one weekend with some girlfriends to go assist some areas, and we were just blown away with the amount of help that was already out there that was not part of government officials coming out to help the community. It was the community itself that was helping other people. And so we were just really heartwarmed, I guess, to see how many people had jumped in to help their neighbors. It was a beautiful thing to see.
And so I'm kind of curious, as we think forward a little bit, in your experience with this most recent disaster and how within the field programs of study that you all work in, does that experience now shape kind of how you'll approach things in the future related to how you're working with students and preparing them? Any kind of thoughts about how it affects the future?
I think for us, we had transitioned to the hybrid learning or an option for our students prior to the devastation. However, for us, it was the knowledge of, well, even with hybrid learning, we had areas that was without internet for weeks. So that's something I think it's just in the back of our mind on a student services point of view. We definitely have looked at our emergency response plan. Were we able to communicate? How did we do things to work on, getting our students what we need? Again, this was not a one-size-fits-all. I've been in contact with many of the government agencies, and I think the thing is you prepare as best as you can, but every devastation, and hopefully we won't have any for a long time, but every devastation is different. I think it really comes down to the people in the community and being able to be flexible and getting the needs that we need right then. You prepare, you plan for the best. We know that it's not a foolproof plan, but I think just our learning, like I said, being able to adjust our learning platforms if a devastation happened, and we were flexible with our students, to get them caught up.
Yeah, I remember at ETSU, grace was a term that we used frequently, not just recently, but with COVID too. I mean, that was a term that we used when we talked about students individually, and we kind of just remember each student situation was different. So, we have patient-centered care and nursing, and so it became a reminder to us as faculty that we need to have student-centered care. So each student had a different thing going on that may have required a different type of attention.
And also in the classroom, thinking about, a lot of our schools use service learning. They get students out in the community as they're going through the programs to just get to know more about what's happening in the community and connecting with the community. I mean, this was an example of one way that there was that connection, particularly you mentioned the dual enrolled student piece and the high school. But are there other thoughts about, another school? It doesn't have to necessarily even be in your area, but if a faculty member is listening in from another school and they're working in this space, what are maybe suggestions about how we can build this sense of community with students, not just on campus, but again, that greater community through their program?
I just think allowing, having students aware of what's going on and then allowing the time or maybe the resources to go and help areas. For us, we, as a TCAT, we have equipment that was able to go out, and, our president had, given the go ahead, like if we have, certain areas that needed debris removal and we had students that were maybe able and their skill set to be able to do those things, volunteering is important. I feel like, being able to give back to the community without expecting anything in return is very important. It gives them, a sense of self-worth and value to be able to help others. And we did see that. We saw that in our community, not only during possible school hours, but after school hours. We had students that were working on weekends and after school to go and play a part in the recovery and the things that needed to be done. So, for us, it was just giving opportunities and allowing the resource, and trying to do that, for our students.
Well, no, at ETSU, we have a community course. And so our instructors, the faculty, have worked with the development of that course to start to become more engaged with the community. So a lot of their assignments, they go out into the community and do surveys and mood shield surveys to see what are the needs of certain areas, and then they develop a plan of action in those areas.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think these are some great examples about how, like, again, through the Perkins funding, we're getting this equipment, how it's helping the students be trained, but then ultimately how those students then can interact in their communities, both professionally, but also, personally, and supporting after like a natural disaster, how they all can step up and enhance that community, sense of community with those around them. Any other kind of final thoughts? Something that maybe you were like, oh, I really wanted to share this about that work that I haven't asked. I'll give you a little space here at the end to do that.
Well, I'll just say I was very excited as a partner with TCAT to hear what they were doing to improve the education for their students, because we'll get these students, if they decide to continue their education, we often recruit from all the TCAT. So it's really exciting to see how focused they are on student learning and student success.
Yeah. Well, I know they appreciate hearing that feedback as well.
Yes. Thank you, Kacie. We appreciate you guys too.
Yeah. As we wrap up that conversation today, I always like to close with a quote from author Parker Palmer, which gives a real good closure to this. He talks, and this is a quote from him he states, "We have at our disposal one of the greatest vehicles for community building known to humankind, the one called education." And so you all are giving a good example of that today in terms of how it's learning both in and outside the classroom that's supporting our communities. So thank you for giving some examples to illustrate this point to our listeners.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this edition of From the VC's Bookshelf, brought to you by TBR, the College System of Tennessee, powering the state's economy and changing the lives of thousands of graduates, starting successful careers each year. To learn more about upcoming book selections or to register to attend discussions live, visit tbr.edu/bookshelf.